What you do in the fall will really affect the way your asparagus produces in the spring. We're now in late fall and it's time to winterize our asparagus. Once the leaves start to turn yellow or even brown and die off, it's time to start cutting them back. When the asparagus leaves are still green, they're still photosynthesizing, and that's when they grab all of that energy from the sun and they put it down into their crowns. So this gives them a better production for next year. So we don't want to be cutting them back when they're green, because that can make the crowns weak and it can even cause them to not produce well or even cause them to die. We've had a couple of frosts and the weather is definitely cooler and the days are shorter. So this is causing the asparagus to go yellow and even some of it's starting to die back. So it's no longer photosynthesizing anymore, so it has no use. We want to cut this back at this stage. Asparagus is a long-lived perennial vegetable that can live for 25 to 30 years as long as we take really good care of it. It's best planted on the edge of gardens or somewhere where it won't be disturbed. It needs a permanent home. It also likes full sunshine and well-drained soil. Asparagus is planted in the springtime, generally from crowns, and it takes 2 to 3 years before you can harvest it. And by not harvesting it those years, it allows the crown to grow big so that it can support nice big spears. Female asparagus, like this one here, will produce seed. And you could harvest this and plant this, but take in mind that it'll take an additional 2 years before you can actually harvest your asparagus. That's like 5 years before you're harvesting asparagus. So you can see that crowns are a much better choice. When cutting back the foliage that's yellowing, we're not only helping the asparagus crowns go into dormancy, but we're also removing any of the leaves that can harbor any type of asparagus beetles or aphids that we don't want to carry on the following year. You can put these leaves at the bottom of a compost pile, one that you're actually going through a hot process. That way it makes sure that it smothers them and it also destroys any insects or eggs that you might have left on these leaves. We got a praying mantis egg right here, and I definitely want to save this, so I'll come in here and clip this off, and I'll either tie this to a tree somewhere that's kind of protected, or I'll put this in the greenhouse so that it can hatch out in the springtime. Now I know that this is a viable egg because there's no holes in it from where it was hatching. Usually there's little tiny holes where the little praying mantis emerge. And this is also this year's growth, so that's another telltale sign. I'm going to cut all of this asparagus down towards 1 inch above the soil level, plus I'm going to save my little praying mantis egg. This patch of asparagus here is on its 4th year. We harvested a little bit off of it last year, and as you can see, it's really nice and thick. It's a good, healthy patch. When I was cutting down all of these asparagus leaves, I come across a bunch of ladybugs and a bunch of ladybug larvae. And so, fortunately, I didn't see any asparagus beetles, and I want the ladybugs to finish out their life cycle and do the good that they do. So I'm just going to take this wad of asparagus leaves and just tuck it in a corner somewhere so they can just finish up the job that they need to do. Now that I have everything cut back, I'm going to put a good layer of well-rotted steer manure over the surface. You can use compost as well. Now I'm going to protect those crowns from really deep freezes with some mulch. You can use pine needles, straw, and what I'm going to use is just some chopped up leaves that I chopped up with my lawnmower. This really gives them a good protection, plus it helps with weed control come springtime. In the springtime, if you have a really deep layer of mulch, you may want to remove some of that to help those spears pop through the ground. On the other hand, if you have a dark mulch, then that actually helps warm the soil up and makes it to where those spears pop through even faster. Remember, it takes 2 to 3 years before you can have your first harvest of asparagus, and you can harvest it for about 6 weeks after you see the first spear. Then after that, you've got to let that asparagus grow so that that can put all of that photosynthesis into the root system, and it starts that cycle all over again. If you're getting value out of this video, then give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to harvest that subscribe button. When we've had warm winters, we've actually been able to harvest spears as early as February, but that can be a little bit tricky because our temperatures will still dip, and then I have to watch that, and then I'll put a frost blanket over them just to protect those spears so that we can make sure we can have a continued harvest through spring. Asparagus makes a great companion to go with tomatoes. If you've ever had any problem with root knot nematodes, then you can plant asparagus in a row and then plant tomatoes on a row next to them, and that really helps combat that problem. In the wintertime, your asparagus crowns are dormant, so there's no need to fertilize or even water. Asparagus has really deep root systems. So because of that, they're known as miners. So their root systems goes deep down into the ground and brings the good minerals up to the soil. And that's why asparagus is so good for us. Asparagus can be a little hard to grow in hot climates like us here. Our temperatures can reach 115 during the summer times, and that's really hard on asparagus crowns. But there's a couple of things that you can do. Make sure that you keep your asparagus moist in well-drained soil and mulch heavily during the summer months. Perennial vegetables like asparagus are a great addition to any vegetable garden. Till next time, we'll see ya. Ooh, it's really getting cold out here. Oh. Aw, that was really nice of you. And it's on too. There you go, guys. That'll warm you up. Is that better, little fellas?